The ship was falling. Fire covered the sky as the small Earth recon vessel broke through the alien planet's atmosphere. Inside, alarms screamed and lights flashed red. Ethan slammed his hand against the controls, trying to level the ship. But it was too late. Systems were fried. Guidance was gone. The only thing left to do was pray the crash wouldn't kill him. Moments later, the ship smashed into the surface, metal twisting, dust rising, silence returning. Ethan crawled out of the wreckage, blood on his forehead and pain in every breath. He didn't know where he was. He didn't care. He just wanted to survive. The landscape was strange. Soft blue grass, tall trees with silver leaves, and a sky that shimmered like glass. His suit was damaged, comms broken. Earth would not find him anytime soon. He limped for hours, looking for shelter, water, anything. That's when he saw her. A girl. Not human, but not frightening. Her skin was pale with a faint glow, eyes large and deep violet, hair like woven light. She stood by a stream, watching him. Ethan raised his hand slowly. "Hey," he said, voice dry. "I won't hurt you." She didn't run. She tilted her head, curious, silent. Ethan collapsed. When he woke, it was night. The girl had dragged him under a stone arch, covered him with glowing leaves, and even placed a bowl of strange fruit beside him. She was still there, sitting nearby, arms wrapped around her knees. "Thank you," he whispered. She said nothing, but nodded. Over the next few days, Ethan slowly recovered. The girl never spoke a word, but she brought him food, water, and once even stitched a rip in his uniform. Ethan started calling her Vera. He didn't know if she understood, but she seemed to like it. He learned to understand her silence. The way she tilted her head meant curiosity. The way she looked away meant sadness. And when she smiled just a little, it lit up the whole world around her. On the 5th night, Ethan sat beside the small fire Vera had made. He looked up at the stars, thinking about Earth, about his crew, about home. Vera sat beside him, her eyes also on the sky. "You have a name?" he asked softly. She looked at him. He smiled. "I call you Vera. It means brave." She blinked slowly, and then for the first time she whispered, "Vera." Ethan laughed. It was the first time he'd laughed in days. "Yeah, that's right, Vera." She smiled again. He looked at her, more serious now. "I don't know if I'll survive this, but if I do, I'll come back. I'll take you to Earth, somewhere safe." Vera stared at him. "I promise," he said, half joking, trying to cheer her up. "A better place. No war. No pain." She reached out and touched his hand. Her skin was cold, but soft. "Promise," she whispered. Ethan nodded. "Yeah, promise." The next morning, Earth forces arrived. A patrol ship picked up the faint emergency signal from Ethan's wreck. When the shuttle landed, soldiers jumped out, scanning the area. Ethan turned to Vera, heart sinking. "I have to go." She stood still, expression unreadable. He didn't know what to say. "You'll be okay, right?" She said nothing. He hesitated, then turned and walked toward the soldiers. As the ship lifted off, he looked down from the window. Vera was still there, small in the blue grass, watching the sky. Time passed. Ethan never returned. Years later, the galaxy changed. Empires rose and fell. Battles were won and lost. But on a small, forgotten planet, one girl trained herself in silence. She remembered every word, every glance, every promise. She watched the stars, waiting for the man who had once called her brave, and she never forgot. Vera watched the sky every night. She sat alone on the high cliff near the broken ship where Ethan had crashed years ago. Her people were gone now. The raiders had come with fire and machines. They called it a cleansing. Her village, her forest, her home, all burned. No one came to help. No one but her had survived. And the one person she had believed in never came back. But Vera had changed. She was no longer the quiet, curious girl who once brought a stranger food and water. Now she moved like a shadow through the forest. She had taught herself to build, to fight, to survive. She had taken the parts from Ethan's wreck and made tools, weapons, even a small beacon. Every few days she turned it on, hoping someone would hear. No one did. Years passed. Her body grew stronger. Her face lost its softness. Her hands, once gentle, now carried scars. But inside, one thing never changed: the promise. The words Ethan had spoken were carved in her mind. One day, I'll come back and take you somewhere safe. She repeated them like a prayer, and then, one night, the sky answered. A small ship flew across the clouds, smooth, quiet, not a raider. Vera didn't hesitate. She lit the beacon and ran. When the ship landed, she watched from the shadows. It was human. Not Ethan, but still human. She waited until nightfall, then snuck aboard. The ship belonged to a merchant crew. They didn't notice her at first. But when they did, she spoke carefully. Few words. Calm voice. She told them her name. She lied about her past. She said she wanted to work, to learn. The captain, a tired man with silver hair, looked at her long and hard. You're not from any place I know. Vera met his eyes. I just want to get to Earth. That was enough. They took her in, gave her a small room in the cargo bay. She cleaned, fixed cables, and carried heavy boxes. She never complained. Every time she passed a star map or heard the words Earth, she listened carefully. She learned about the galaxy, about the great powers, the trade routes, the alliances. She learned that humans were both feared and respected. She learned that Ethan's world was far away, behind layers of bureaucracy and military borders. But she didn't stop. Each stop, each system, she picked up more knowledge. She studied languages, machines, patterns. Her mind was sharp, her memory perfect. The crew started trusting her. She fixed systems faster than the engineers. She stopped a pirate ambush once with a silent alarm. The captain gave her a badge. Welcome to the ship, Vera. She nodded. She still didn't smile. On the 6th stop, she heard the name, Commander Ethan Cross. A station worker was talking about him. That guy, hero of Sector 9, took down a whole rebel cell. Cold type, but sharp. Her heart stopped. She followed the worker, listened more, took notes. The last record of Ethan placed him at Port Helios, a remote Earth-run station near the edge of galactic trade routes. Vera knew where she needed to go. She said goodbye to the crew and paid for transport using saved credits and repaired tech she had traded. No one asked her why she left. They just watched her disappear into the next ship, quiet as always. The journey to Port Helios took weeks. On the way, she stayed quiet, blending in. She studied human behavior, more closely now. How they walked, how they talked, how they trusted. She learned what fear looked like, what power looked like, and she prepared herself. When the ship landed at the station, it was busy and bright. Metal walkways, thousands of voices, security bots scanning every corner. Vera stepped off like a ghost among them. Her eyes scanned the signs. Her hand stayed close to her cloak. And then she saw him, Ethan. He looked older, broader, wore a dark command uniform, walking with confidence through a corridor of soldiers. He didn't see her. He didn't stop. He passed her like she was just another face. Vera stood still. The moment passed. She didn't cry. She just turned and walked the other way. She found a quiet space in the lower decks. Rented a bunk under a fake ID. She started working again. Small repair jobs, silent systems maintenance. She was invisible, but she was watching. Each day she followed his route. Not too close, not too far. She saw how people respected him, how they feared him. But she also saw the tiredness in his eyes. The moments when he sat alone, the way he rubbed his arm like an old injury hurt him. He had forgotten her. That night, Vera sat in the shadows near the central power core. She wrote a short message on a data chip and slid it into the station network. When Ethan opened his terminal the next morning, one sentence blinked on screen. "You promised." He froze. Vera, watching from a camera, leaned back against the wall. She was here now, and she wasn't leaving. The message had no sender, no signature, just two simple words. "You promised." Commander Ethan Cross stared at the blinking text on his terminal. His heart skipped a beat, though he didn't understand why. It felt like a memory long buried had suddenly knocked on the door of his mind. He looked around the command center, but no one else seemed to notice anything strange. After a few seconds, the message disappeared from the screen. "Trace it," he ordered the AI assistant. "No source detected," the computer replied. "Local network intrusion, signature unknown." That didn't sit right with him. Later that day, Ethan walked through the engineering deck. The systems had been acting strange for weeks now. Nothing serious, just small malfunctions, odd alerts, things fixing themselves before the repair crew even arrived. He suspected a hacker, or worse, a spy. But the security team found nothing. He didn't know that Vera was watching. She moved like smoke through the station, quiet, unnoticed, almost invisible. Dressed like a junior technician, she wore standard gray overalls, her face slightly shadowed by a hood. She worked at night, alone in the deeper levels where cameras were fewer and the lights flickered. She had learned everything about the station, the layout, the security shifts, even how to mask her heat signature from drones. She wasn't here to hurt anyone, not yet. She just wanted to know why he forgot her. Every night she watched him from afar. She sat in the dark maintenance tunnels, listening through tapped comms, watching through hacked cameras. She heard his voice again after so many years. It hadn't changed much, firm, clear, calm. But there was no warmth in it, no memory of her. That's what burned the most. Ethan, meanwhile, started seeing signs. Tools left in strange places, messages vanishing before anyone could read them. Systems that reset themselves. He called a meeting with his officers. "There's someone in the station. I don't know what they want, but they're not ordinary. I want them found." But Vera was always a step ahead. She didn't attack. She didn't steal. She just left clues. A power cable unplugged seconds before a short circuit. A broken airlock sealed before anyone noticed. She was protecting this station. Quietly. Secretly, like she once protected a dying soldier on a distant planet. Ethan began to feel it, a presence, as if someone was following him, but always just out of sight. At night, he dreamed of blue grass and violet eyes. He didn't understand why the dreams felt so real. Then one day it happened. He entered the lower section of the station to inspect a power fluctuation. The lights were dim. The corridor was silent, and then he saw her. Just a shape at first, standing at the end of the hallway. A girl in gray. He called out, "Hey, who are you?" She didn't move. Ethan stepped forward, hand on his sidearm. "This area is restricted." Still, she stood there. Then she whispered, "You said you'd take me somewhere safe." Ethan froze. That voice. It echoed in his mind like a song from another lifetime. "Who?" he began. She stepped closer, just enough for the light to catch her face, and Ethan felt like the air was punched out of his lungs. Her features had changed, older now, sharper. But those violet eyes. He remembered them. He remembered the stream, the firelight, the cold hand that touched his. Vera, he said, barely believing. She didn't smile. You forgot, she said simply. No, he said quickly, stepping closer. I didn't forget. I didn't know if you were still alive. After the crash, they took me. You promised, she said again. His chest tightened. I was young. I didn't know they'd come for you. I thought you were safe. There was no one, she whispered. Only fire. He looked, down, ashamed. I'm sorry. She stared at him. I waited. I searched. I crossed systems. I worked for years, all to find the one human who promised to protect me. Ethan shook his head, guilt mixing with confusion. Why come now? After all this time? Because I saw what your people were becoming, what they were doing in the shadows. I thought, maybe you'd be different. There was a pause. And now? Ethan asked. I don't know, she said softly. Then, without another word, she turned and disappeared into the shadows of the corridor, leaving him speechless. Later that night, Ethan sat alone in his quarters, watching the camera feed from the hallway. He replayed the moment again and again. The station logs showed no official record of her presence. No ID. No scan. It was like she was a ghost, but she was real. Somewhere deep inside, he knew. This wasn't over. Vera had returned, and the past was no longer behind him. Ethan didn't sleep that night. His mind replayed every second. Her face, her voice, her eyes. Vera, the girl from that alien world, the girl he had promised to protect. Back then, he had been a young officer with hope in his voice and strength in his arms. Now he was a commander hardened by war and silence. And yet her presence had shaken something inside him. She had come all this way. For him. The next morning, he walked into the intelligence office. I need eyes on the lower maintenance decks. Deep scans. I want to know who's living off record down there. Another smuggler? The officer asked. Maybe, Ethan said. But she's smarter than that and faster. The scans returned nothing. No life signs. No unusual energy readings, no heat trails, just cold pipes and steel corridors. Ghost protocol? His second-in-command joked. But Ethan didn't laugh. He knew she was there. Vyra had gone deeper underground now, after showing. Herself, she wanted to see what he would do. She didn't want revenge, at least not yet. But she didn't want lies either. She had risked everything. And still, she wasn't sure if he even remembered who he was before the medals and orders. In the darkness, she sat on the edge of a forgotten cargo bay and whispered to herself, what if he lies again? She didn't trust easily anymore. Later, that day, the station broadcast system flickered on. A small emergency on one of the outer rings, power core overheating. Evacuation was already underway, but a technician was still trapped inside. Vera didn't hesitate. She ran toward the fire. Inside the reactor room, smoke poured from cracked walls. Sparks flew. The technician lay under a collapsed support beam, coughing and barely conscious. Vera crawled through the fire, lifted the beam with a lever, and dragged him to safety. Cameras caught a glimpse of her. That was all Ethan needed. He saw her face again on the screen. Dirty, bruised, brave. She saved him, one officer said. Ethan nodded. I know. He made a decision. That night, he returned alone to the same corridor where she had first spoken to him. He stood in the silence and said quietly, You were always stronger than me. A voice behind him replied, Then why did you leave me? He turned. Vera stood there, arms crossed, her eyes guarded. I didn't mean to, Ethan said. Back then, I was pulled away. They told me the planet was too dangerous to return, that you wouldn't have survived. You believed them, she said. But I survived anyway. I know. And I'll never forgive myself for that. There was a long silence. I need to know, Ethan said, stepping closer. Why now? Why come all this way just to watch me? Vera hesitated. Because I wanted to know if you were still the same man who made that promise. And am I? She looked at him. No, but you could be. He took a slow breath. Let me make it right. You can't undo the past. But I can help now, he said. Let me bring you in, officially. No more hiding. You saved one of ours. The council owes you. We can get you a proper name, a life, on Earth. Vera looked away. I don't want to be your debt, she said. I want to know if promises mean anything to humans. Ethan's voice softened. To me, they do. She stared at him for a long moment. Her eyes shimmered with old pain and quiet hope. Then prove it, she said. How? She handed him a chip. There's something wrong with your command. Your people are being used. Ethan frowned. Used by who? She stepped back. You'll see. Look closer. The station isn't just for defense. It's hiding something. Before he could ask more, she vanished again into the shadows. Ethan returned to his office, inserted the chip, and watched. Files opened, logs, orders, secret projects, and something else, something that chilled his blood. His station wasn't just a border outpost. It was a black site testing ground, experiments on non-human life, Vera's species. They had been captured after the invasion of her world, and used, tortured, modified. He sat back, hands shaking. He had been part of it, unknowingly, and now he understood. Vera hadn't just come for answers. She had come for justice, and she had given him one final chance to stand with her, or against. Her outside, in the cold vacuum of space, stars burned quietly. Inside, the war was just beginning. Ethan didn't leave his quarters for hours. The data Vera gave him was worse than he expected. Video logs, test results, audio recordings of alien voices crying out in pain. Some were from her world, some were younger. He saw pictures, scars, tubes, broken wings. A silent scream ran through the files. His own station was part of this, and his name was on one of the shipment approvals. He sat in silence, staring at the screen. The room felt colder than ever before. He remembered her words. I want to know if promises mean anything to humans. She had trusted him with this truth. Now she waited to see what he would do. Ethan stood up slowly, went to the mirror, and looked at himself. A hero in uniform, a commander, a respected leader, and now maybe a liar. He opened a secure line to Earth Command. This is Commander Ethan Cross. I need access to all black site activity linked to Port Helios. Full transparency. There was silence on the line for a moment. Then a calm voice replied, Authorization denied, Commander. Your request has been flagged. Stand by for review. Click. He knew what that meant. They were already watching him. That night, 2 soldiers entered his quarters. Commander, you've been temporarily relieved of duty. Orders from High Command. He didn't resist. He knew this was coming. They moved him to a sealed room, but not a prison. Yet. It was more like quiet isolation. No news, no visitors. Just silence. But Vera knew. She watched from a forgotten camera node deep in the station. She had planned for this. She knew once Ethan saw the truth, the machine around him would react fast. She hadn't just come to find answers. She had come with a plan. She sent a signal from the underdeck, using an old Earth military code, one she found in Ethan's ship logs from years ago. The message was short. He chose truth. Now we choose war. Far away, a reply came, quiet, simple. Understood. Moving in. Vera sat back, closing her eyes. The air felt heavy. The moment had come. The next day, the power failed on the lower levels. Then alarms began to scream. The main hangar exploded, just one section, no casualties, but the blast sent panic through. The station. Systems started crashing, emergency bots activated, but many moved in the wrong direction. Someone had taken control. Vera moved through the chaos like a ghost. She wore a mask now, part rebreather, part shield. She headed toward Ethan's cell. She had no weapon in hand, only a small device. 2 guards stood outside his room. She stunned both in seconds with pulse darts. Silent. Clean. Ethan looked up as the door slid open. "You," he whispered. "I told you," she said. "You still had a choice. You didn't have to do this." "No," she replied, "but they didn't give me any other way." He stood. "Where are we going?" "Out," she said, "but not just us." They moved fast through smoke and flickering lights. Most of the station was in lockdown now, but Vera had mapped it all. Ethan followed her through shafts and forgotten tunnels until they reached an old storage bay. Inside were cages, cold metal cages, and inside those were the survivors, not just from her species, others too, small, thin, silent, eyes wide with fear. They barely moved. Ethan felt his knees weaken. "My God!" Vera unlocked the first cage, then the next. "I found them days ago," she said. "They're the reason I couldn't leave." "How long have they been down here?" "Years, maybe more." She handed him a device. "This will unlock the exit doors. Once they're out, a ship is waiting. Old code, yours. They won't stop it." Ethan looked at the creatures. They were watching him, some with hope, some with terror. He turned back to her. "What about you?" Vera shook her head. "They'll come after me, not them. No, I'm not leaving you behind." "You already did once," she said quietly. He stepped closer. "I'm not that man anymore." Vera looked into his eyes. Something shifted in her expression. For the first time, her anger looked like sadness. "Then prove it," she said. Alarms roared again. The station was now in full lockdown. He moved quickly, unlocking each cage. He whispered to the captives, "You're safe now. Follow me." One by one they came out, limping, crawling, blinking into the dim hallway. Vera stayed behind. He turned. "Come with us." She hesitated. Then she nodded just once. The group moved as one, through broken lights, past smoke and fallen guards. Ethan led them. Vera guarded the rear, her eyes sharp, her hands ready. At the last door, a heavy blast shutter blocked their way. Vera reached for her pack. "I've got a charge!" Before she could plant it, a voice rang out from behind them. "Step away from the wall!" Dozens of soldiers stood there, weapons raised. Vera stepped in front of the others. Ethan raised his hands. "You don't want to do this," one soldier called out. "You're under arrest, Commander," Vera whispered. "Now or never." He looked at the soldiers, then at the survivors, then back at her. And he stepped forward. "I ordered this, not her." The soldiers paused. "I have proof," he said. "Take me." The officer hesitated. Behind him, the wall charge exploded. The door flew open. Vera grabbed 2 children and ran through the smoke. The others followed. The soldiers fired, but missed in the chaos. Ethan was gone. By the time order returned, the group had vanished into space, and for the first time in years, the ones who had no voice were free. The escape ship flew like a shadow through space, old, patched, and silent. No warheads, no defense systems. But it had one thing no weapon could offer: hope. Inside, Ethan stood at the helm, his hands steady, his face tense. Vera sat beside him, monitoring the systems, while behind them, nearly 24 rescued aliens huddled in silence. None of them spoke. They didn't have to. They had survived hell. Now they were free. But freedom had a price. Back at Port Helios, the council was furious. Ethan Cross, war hero, loyal officer, was now marked a traitor. A human had sided with non-human life over government orders. The message was clear. Hunt him down. Fleet Command sent 3 intercept cruisers into nearby space. They were fast, deadly, and equipped with the best tracking AI in the galaxy. Ethan's ship was old and slow, with barely enough fuel to reach the next habitable sector. "Can we make it to the edge of the Astari belt?" he asked, scanning the map. Vera shook her head. "Not without dropping weight. We're burning too much." He looked back at the passengers. "That's not an option." "We have to think smart," she said. "I can scramble our signature, give us ghost mode for a few minutes. But we need cover, asteroids, a moon, something to hide in." He nodded. Plotting course. Behind them, a small child with soft red skin and 4 thin arms held Vera's hand tightly. The girl hadn't spoken since they rescued her. She just stared up at Vera with eyes full of trust. Ethan noticed. "She trusts you." "I was her once," Vera said softly. Silence filled the cockpit. Hours passed. The ship slipped through narrow space lanes, ducked behind gas clouds, and danced between asteroid fields. But the cruisers were gaining. Then the alarm blared. "Tracking signal locked," Vera said. "One cruiser just broke through the nebula." Ethan stood. "Everyone brace for turbulence." In the back, the aliens gripped each other. No one cried, no one screamed. They had already faced worse. The cruiser came fast like a knife through the dark. "They're charging weapons," Vera said. 20 seconds. Ethan narrowed his eyes. "They want to scare us, but they won't fire, not with innocents aboard." "You sure?" "No." She tapped a command. "Deploying decoys." Metallic pods launched from the ship's underbelly, releasing noise and heat signals. The cruiser paused, just long enough. "Now!" Ethan shouted. "Engines to max!" The ship dove into an asteroid belt. The hull screamed. Metal scraped rock. Lights flickered. But they made it. The cruiser didn't follow. Not yet. Inside, the silence of the asteroid field, Ethan set the ship to low power. No signals, no sound. They drifted like space dust. He turned to Vera. "How long before they find us again?" "Not long. A few hours at most." "We need allies," Ethan said. "Someone who can hide them," she nodded. "There's one place, a forgotten colony, not part of any alliance, deep in the fringe systems. But they don't trust outsiders." "I'm already a traitor," Ethan said with a faint smile. "What more could go wrong?" The ship drifted for hours before making the jump. Short range, barely within range. The drive groaned, but it worked. The stars bent, then unbent. Before them, a small, icy planet appeared. Gray skies, dark waters, high cliffs. The colony was hidden inside the mountains, invisible to satellites. Vera transmitted an old signal. They waited, and then came a voice. "Vera, is that really you?" Her lips twitched into the smallest smile. "It's me." The ship landed. The survivors were taken in, quietly, gently. They were given warm blankets, soft food, and kind words in dozens of languages. No questions were asked. Ethan stood outside the cliffside hangar, watching the cold wind dance across the peaks. Vera joined him. "You saved them," she said. He looked at her. "No, you did." She shook her head. "Not alone." He hesitated, then said, "I can't go back." "I know. They'll come for me, maybe for this place too." "We'll be ready," she said. He looked at her again. "Why did you really come for me?" She took a long breath. "Because even after everything, I wanted to believe your promise meant something. And now? I think maybe it did. They stood in silence for a moment. Then a message pinged from orbit. Vera checked it. Her face darkened. They found us, she said. 3 more ships inbound, heavily armed. Ethan turned. We don't have the firepower to stop them. No, she replied. But we have a message. What do you mean? Vera walked to the comms station and tapped in a code. A signal burst from the planet. Loud, wide, clear. It didn't ask for help. It was a warning to Earth, to the Council, to the whole galaxy. You hunted us. You used us. But we are not broken. Not anymore. And the human who once made a promise now fights beside us. It wasn't just a message. It was a declaration. And for the first time in centuries, a new resistance began on a cold, forgotten world with a commander who had betrayed his orders to keep one promise. The enemy ships arrived just before dawn, 3 dark shapes in the sky, silent, deadly, and fully armed. Ethan stood at the mountain ledge, looking up. Behind him, Vera prepared the colony's defenses. Makeshift turrets, camouflaged bunkers, and hidden tunnels had been set up overnight. It wasn't much, but it was something. The children and survivors were moved deep underground. The colony leaders had agreed. This place would not fall quietly. Not again. Ethan checked his weapon. He knew it was useless against warships, but it gave him something to hold on to, something real. Scanners show troop pods, Vera said, beside him. They're not bombing us. Yet. They want to capture us alive, Ethan muttered. Public trial. Broadcast it. Make us an example. They want the lie to live longer than the truth. And they'll lose, Ethan said. He turned to the people around him, humans who had fled the system, aliens who had been broken, hunted, nearly erased, and all of them now stood together. He spoke, loud enough for the hill to echo. You all know who I was. You've seen the uniform, the badges, the orders I once followed. I let the truth hide behind a flag, but not anymore. They listened, silent, focused. I didn't save you, he continued. You saved me. And now, I'm with you, not because I'm a hero, but because you reminded me what a promise means. We didn't start this war, but we'll decide how it ends. Some nodded. Others tightened their fists. Even the youngest stood taller. Then the sky lit up. Drop pods screamed through the clouds, slamming into the mountain valley. Soldiers poured out, black armor, faceless masks, heavy weapons. They moved fast, methodical. But the defenders were ready. Turrets fired, explosives cracked the earth, smoke filled the air. Ethan led the first charge from the front. Vera moved like wind between rocks, her energy blade humming. They didn't fight to win. They fought to hold. Every second bought was another second the survivors could flee deeper. But this time, something unexpected happened. Messages poured in from other colonies, fringe worlds, refugee stations. We received your signal. We heard the truth. We're with you. And one message from Earth. It wasn't from the Council. It was from soldiers. Human soldiers, Ethan's old squad. We believed in you once. We still do. Stand by. Vera looked at Ethan. You didn't just keep a promise. You started something bigger. Ethan didn't smile. Not yet. He looked up again and saw something that made him freeze. More ships, but not from Earth Command. These ones had no flags, independent ships, merc fleets, old war cruisers thought lost, civilian freighters repurposed for battle. One by one, they dropped out of FTL, surrounding the mountain sky. They had come for a different reason, not for orders, but for truth. The enemy command ship tried to retreat, but it was too late. A single message from the largest rebel ship played on every channel. "We remember what you did to them. We remember the silence. Now we answer with fire." A war began in the sky. A dozen factions, once scattered, now united by a single act of defiance, a single promise that reached beyond worlds. Ethan and Vera pushed through the last of the ground squads. Smoke filled the air. Her blade flickered. His arm bled, but they stood together. She glanced at him. "We're not just survivors anymore." "No," he said, "we're the future." Hours later, the battle ended. The Council forces were gone, defeated in space, broken on the ground. The surviving enemy troops surrendered quietly. No one cheered. They just breathed. Finally, after so long, they breathed. The mountain was still. The sun began to rise. Ethan stood at the edge again, looking out over the scorched valley. Vera came beside him. "It's over," she said softly. He shook his head. "No, it's just beginning. But it's ours now." They looked at each other. "You never meant the promise," she said quietly. "No," Ethan replied. "But I kept it anyway." Vera smiled. The first real smile in years. Somewhere behind them, the rescued children played in the snow. Their laughter was soft, but clear, real. And high above them, a new flag was raised. Not of a single world, or species, or army. It was a symbol of all who had once been forgotten, and all who had finally said, "Never again." The promise that began as a careless moment between a young man and a curious alien girl had become the spark that lit a galaxy, and the galaxy would never forget.